So we just talked about kind of, the Orioles won 101 games last year, and then they go out and get an ace in Corbin Burnes. And obviously being, knowing so much about pitching, how good, I guess, what makes Corbin Burnes so special? And then also adding a top end ace like that, we've seen guys like Grayson Rodriguez talk about where he brings a competitiveness inside the rotation where, if he goes and gets 10 strikeouts and then next game Grayson got 9, he's like, well, I outdueled you. So there's that competitiveness inside that kind of seems to help elevate everyone's game. Is that something that you've seen can really impact a pitching rotation?
Well, I kind of lived that, playing on a team that had 320 game winners and 70. And, next year we had 420 game winners. And you never wanted the guy that was pitching on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, if you were pitching on Thursday, not to have a good game. You wanted to either be as good or better. And, everybody talks about that, 420 game winners in modern history. That's the only time it ever happened. I think we also had 72 complete games. And Hamburger was the pitching coach, went on to manage in Milwaukee and then with the Mets. But Corbin Burnes, first of all, he's going to pitch around 200 innings. What I like the other day, I was talking to Ben McDonald about it, is that primarily, he's got a good curveball, he's got good velocity, he's got probably the best cutter in the major leagues. So everything he throws is kind of right to left, but he pitched in with his two-seam fastball because we saw Kansas City, and he's going to pitch, I think, on Saturday. They did a nice job of adjusting. He had the fabulous game opening day in Baltimore with 11 strikeouts or whatever it was in 6 innings. They had no chance. And but I think the more he pitches in the American League, and you go up to New York, if hitters only look at, and Ryan knows this, if you only look to one side of the plate, it's a little bit easier to hit. Doesn't mean you're going to hit it because the stuff's that good. Now all of a sudden we saw Bradish do it last year. We saw Kramer do it, where you come up with a two-seam fastball, you run it in. It opens up the outside corners. All of a sudden, the scouting report is, he's not one-dimensional. He can pitch both sides of the plate. So, he does that. And the other thing is, he's going to be a free agent next year. He's going to get, he's 30 years old or 29 going on 30. He's going to get 5, 6, 7 years at $35 million a year. He's going to get a $200 and some $1,000 if he stays healthy and he pitches well. And I had a lot of success because I played with some of the best players that ever played. And when you go out there every fourth, back when I pitched, it was usually every fourth day. If he goes out there every fifth day, he's going to win a lot of games. He was 10-8 last year. Not that, Milwaukee doesn't have a good ball club because I think they won 92 games. But he's coming to a good ball club. It's still going to rely on the guys who pitch the 8th and 9th innings. So hopefully, they'll get Perez back, and Cano will feel more comfortable pitching in the late innings along with Kimbrel, and he'll win a ton of games. And what a better role model for Grayson Rodriguez, who has really come a long way. I mean, the pitches he throws. I mean, he's always had great stuff, but now the command's a little bit better. Got rid of that cutter. Last year, I mean, let's see, hanging curveball to Ohtani. There's 3 runs. He strikes out Seager for Texas with a 99-mile-per-hour fastball with the bases loaded, comes back with a cutter, speeds the bat up, grand slam. There's 7 runs. So all of a sudden you have a young pitcher with great stuff, and hopefully he'll stay healthy and he'll be able to, to be able to be a number 2 starter, number 1 starter. He'll just be one of the guys that gives you a chance to win every time he goes out there.
Yeah, I think one of the weirdest stats is Corbin Burnes has never won more than 12 games in a year in his career for as dominant as he's been.
Well, but what's the run support?
Yeah.
Bullpen. I mean, they have, always have had a pretty good bullpen. Williams, I think, is hurt with them, now from Milwaukee. But they had Hader, of course they traded him to San Diego, and now he's in
Houston.
He's given up.
He's given up a lot.
Well, they're not. Yeah, Joe Espada, he's got to be calling Dusty Baker, going, Dusty, help.
There's a panic over there in Houston right now. I mean, they've lost a lot of close games.
Hey, look at the Orioles, 30-16 in 1-run games. If it's okay, so you win 101 games. If you win 25 games and you take 6 off that, or 4 off that 30, the record's a little bit different. And you got to remember, Tampa Bay started out 30-9 last year.
Yeah.
Now they lost three starters to Tommy John surgery, so they're probably not going to be as good. But they're a very competitive ball club. But if you take 3 or 4 wins off those 30-16 one-run ball games or the 11-6 extra inning games, you're not even winning the division.
No.
And maybe that would have helped because you wouldn't have had the week off. Even though I'm not buying into that, did not allow the Orioles to kind of get ready to play the Rangers, who, as we know, would win the World Series. Pretty good ball club. $900 million they spent to get better, and they were.
Yeah, that's what they paid you, right, Jim, back in the day, around that around that amount.
I had to turn down the money, Ryan.
Yeah, well, it was for the jockey commercial, right?
Well, it's funny. Somebody sent me right after I retired. I did Dempsey, Tippy, your dad, Eddie. We're all in a jockey commercial. In fact, if you Google that,
Wait a minute, all of you are in that?
Oh, it's actually classic.
Oh,
I mean, really, if you Google that, you will see. I don't know if I'm talking about pure comb cotton. I don't know what it is, and your dad's in it, and
we're looking it up.
We shot it in the locker room.
We're gonna have one more baseball related question. They're 2 baseball, but one's fun, one's a actual, again, your expertise, and it's again we're talking about pitching. Kevin has one thing, and it's specific to Grayson Rodriguez.
Yeah, Jim, really appreciate you joining us. And you mentioned Grayson a bit earlier, and I know for him, he's had a lot of hype around him since being drafted. And last year he was up, and then he was down, and then he's back up again. But he's had a great start to the year this year. Obviously, you got strikeouts from Grayson. He's throwing the heat, and he has a bunch of great stuff. But for him, what transformation have you seen from him dating back to when he first got the call? And for you, what do you think his ceiling is and the next steps for him for reaching that ceiling?
Well, the ceiling is to stay healthy. A couple of years ago, he had the lat problem, or he would have been in the big leagues year before last. I think pitch selection, windups better. Last year he was slide stepping every time there's a runner on. He never quite get closed. Went down the minor leagues, worked on his windup, got rid of the cut fastball. He's got really good fastball. He's come up with a 2-seamer, which gives him a little bit more movement because he does throw 96 to 98. I don't know if he has that real backspin where he can, strike people out. But when, if you go back to his first start, he had the great split. The next time he didn't, but he still pitched well. So I think he's kind of learning. He's always going to have good stuff, and he's always going to have velocity anywhere from 95 to 98. But I think he's learning what we all learned is that he may not have, and I never, Brian Mattis used to always say, well, if you pitch 30 times, maybe 15, 18 times, you're going to have your best stuff. And then I never believe that. I just think that your stuff's good enough. And you have to understand, all you got to do is have more than one pitch. One night it may be the curveball. The next night it might be the split changeup. Maybe the other night, and his slider's gotten a lot better because the tilt's better. Talking to him the other day, he said, I'm going to try to throw it as hard as I can. Hopefully that will not hurt his elbow. So at the end of the day, he's got 4 pitches to, actually 5 now with a 2-seam or 4-seam fastball. And it makes it a lot easier. If you're not at your best, you're still awfully good. And the other thing is, if you look back at the Orioles starters last year, with the exception of Kyle Bradish, almost all those guys got between 5.7 runs to over 6. So the Oriole offense was outstanding. We know they're the best, and they're up at about 295 this year with runners in scoring position. Home runs are up this year. The ball's much more lively. We'll find that out when they actually test it. They let Meredith Wills, the astrophysicist who tells the truth, she'll cut the ball in half. They'll find out it's a much livelier ball. There's been more balls hit into left field this year over the Great Wall of Baltimore than I think there were in the last 2 months last year. So the ball's traveling, but it's going to be a really good team, and how good it's going to be, it depends on whether Bradish comes back and also John Means is able to pitch. Because, again, John's not one of these guys that's going to pitch at 95, but he's going to pitch at 92 and 3 with his slider, curveball, and great changeup. He's going to be very effective. And the same problem that lefties give the Orioles, John Means brings to the table when he faces other teams that have good left-handed hitters.
Yeah, well, we're holding our breath that everything turns out well. As we know, it's always touch and go. We're hoping John Means gets back up. Kyle Bradish, hoping the same thing, just because when you look at all these guys, including Grayson Rodriguez, it's of a really talented group, and it'd be so fun to see the whole group hitting their stride at the right time. And hopefully, as we know, just as we saw Texas in the playoffs last year, you just got to kind of be getting healthy or be feeling good or playing, quote unquote, your best ball at the right time. Texas was, and hopefully for Baltimore, they're playing their best ball in September and October, not just here in April.